This is Laurie Forster, the wine coach, and I'm so excited for this episode of The Sipping Point because I have one of my very favorite guests of all time, Susannah Siger, here with me.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi. She's the owner and founder of a store called Ma Petite Shoe that has the two most important things that every lady should have: great chocolate and great shoes. So I just love that combination. And now she's expanded and actually has a creperie adjacent to her shop where they make amazing crepes that incorporate the chocolates, as I understand, and all kinds of other treats. But I thought, since we're almost here at Valentine's Day, what better time to have Susannah join us to talk about chocolate, not those crazy boxes of chocolate you get at the grocery store, but really good artisanal gourmet chocolate that us ladies are hoping you guys are going to buy, hint, hint. And there's something for everyone. Susannah, thank you for joining us.
This is such a treat, Laurie. I'm so glad I could do it amidst all the shoppers, the men and the ladies we're in today. And everyone always has a ton of questions because the chocolate world has just exploded over the past 5 years, I would say. And every time we go to approach the new chocolatiers, they're doing some crazy things. And I think it's almost getting to the point where you need a sommelier for chocolate because
right.
People have so many questions.
Right.
It has
gotten like chocolate. I mean, coffee is like this too, right? With the single origins and the different beans and the different ways it's grown. In chocolate, not only do you have the base, but you also have other things incorporated. We're going to see like fruit and pine and saffron herb. So you do have to know a lot about the culinary world in addition to just chocolate.
Yeah, people are going into these strange directions. I think did you want to talk about the saffron one first? It's so
yeah. So okay, everybody that's watching, this is really exciting. Susannah sent me all kinds of amazing chocolate that I have here, the same things she has in the shop, and I picked out some ideas that I have for great pairings. This is the first time I'm going to try these pairings, so we're going to see how I did. But most importantly, the first place we got to start is learning about the chocolate, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the wines that I picked out. So let's start with that saffron bar. Tell me a little bit more about this one.
This is saffron and chili pepper, and it really builds on the heat. So chocolate is so nice to pair with spicy herbs and spices because it tends to melt to your body temperature. So the first thing you want to do is bite the chocolate, and as we've learned together, you don't chew it, but you just let it melt on your palate. And it's the equivalent, I guess, of kind of swirling the wine and just getting it really nice and melted. And that kind of coats your tongue a little bit. So then the flavors tend to build later. So you get the tang of the saffron, and then the chili pepper, the heat is going to come to the back.
Getting that now.
Want a sip of wine fairly soon as it starts to get spicier and spicier. But this is a wonderful, very small tasting bar from two friends, and they're literally two friends that opened this just chocolate company. Really unusual things. They also do a wasabi and lemongrass bar, and we have a number of their bars here in the shop. And they also do aromatics like lavender and lemon. So that's the other thing that we want to talk about today. So not only we are going in the spicy direction, but into very interesting floral fragrances and things that you wouldn't necessarily pair with chocolate. And the first thing to know about buying chocolate for other people, of course, is to know whether they'd like dark or milk chocolate. And so it's almost an insult at this point in time if you get someone the wrong bar on the spectrum of dark and milk. It's like, oh honey, didn't you know? Didn't you know my ring size? Didn't you know that I love pink roses, not red roses? So you really want to kind of snoop around and delicately find out what your recipient might want on the spectrum of percentage. So you're going to want, for a dark chocolate, you're going to want probably a 70% cacao and above.
Okay.
And for deep milk chocolate, that's around 45% to 60. You go deep that way. And the lighter milk chocolates are below 45%. So
Now with this saffron, it's from Two Friends, you said is the name of the company?
called Two Friends. Yeah, they're so
And
cute.
Remind me where they're based out of?
You know what? I think that they are actually we do a lot on from the West Coast.
Okay.
And I think that they are from California.
Now,
there's a lot of experimentation.
This is white chocolate with also some dark chocolate drizzled on the top.
It is a white chocolate, and it's kind of saffron. I think they chose that, so the saffron, because it's so delicate, would shine through. So I think they're actually from Ontario. I am mistaken. I think that they have French on the bar as well, so that's usually an indicator. So yeah,
our Canadian friends, I love it.
This is a French influenced company, so you're going to have a high cacao content in any of the French inspired chocolate. Also, even if it's a white chocolate, the cocoa butter content is going to be higher and have that really nice rich mouthfeel. So definitely look for if you like white chocolate, go for a European influence company. And we have one here actually in the Baltimore area. They're called Cacao Lorenzo, and their white chocolate is just phenomenal, out of this world.
And we should orient, because people are going to be watching this all over the country. Of course, lots of Marylanders are on my subscriber list, but you're actually in this hip, cool neighborhood in the city of Baltimore called Hampden. If you haven't been there and you're visiting Baltimore, it's not in the center city downtown. It's just a hop and a skip away, but it has got all the cool shops and restaurants and fun, artistic people like yourself. I mean, how do you describe Hampden?
Well, believe it or not, we've been getting a lot of notoriety. Recently, we were chosen by Redfin as one of the top hottest neighborhoods in the entire country.
Ooh.
So we've been getting some serious props recently from national. I think we've been on Forbes list for hipster neighborhood and that type of thing. But there are a lot of entrepreneurs, and there are a lot of people opening. We have a artisanal ice cream store here now called the Charmery.
Yes, I've had them on the show.
Yeah, a lot of indie young people who find support here in this community for whatever crazy idea that they have that they want to start. So
I love that.
Fun. It's really all the time. I have young chocolatiers that come into the shop and some of them over the years have really become quite prominent. So that's really fun to see a young person just thrive like that,
Right.
And we're always like, yes, you need to do a salted one. Yes, you need to do a peanut butter one. So it's fun.
That's great. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about, you talked about the saffron with the chili. And so we've got the white chocolate with saffron, but also I knew there was a little heat. So let me tell you what I picked. I'm pretty happy with it. I might make one small tweak next time I pick my pairing. But I had been sent a sample of this. It's the Bolla Rosé Sparkling Wine. So it's a very affordable, around $13. It's a blend of Pinot Noir, Pinot Blanc, and Reboso, which is an Italian red grape. And it's a sparkling rosé, but it's got a tad bit of fruity sweetness to it. So saffron has a great affinity to rosé, and the sweetness, fruitiness, I thought would be a nice offset for the chili part of that chocolate. And it was a really fun wine sandwich. Now, if you've never seen me before, the wine sandwich goes like this. You try the wine, which I did right before we got on air. Then you try the chocolate, enjoy it, and go back to sipping the wine and think about how the wine changed. And so this wine ended up being so much drier on the second sip than it was on the first, because the sweetness and that spiciness just sort of toned the wine out and made it feel like a dry rosé, almost dry sparkling rosé. So the only tweak I think I might make is even try this maybe with a rosé that has a little bit more sweetness. I think could also be really nice. And it doesn't have to be sparkling. I could see, you know, there's so many great rosés out there that are off dry, or, you know, blushes that people still love their blush wines that have a little sweetness. That would be really fun.
We've talked about before when we've done wine and chocolate pairings that it is sometimes nice to have the effervescence, because
Yes.
it sort of lifts the chocolate then off your palate. It actually sort of like pops it.
It's a
And then-
cleansing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to a little bit of bubbly.
I love it. I love it. All right. So that was our first pairing, our first chocolate, the saffron and chili pepper from two friends. Really delicious. I'm not going to, let's see, should I look at the calories? Nah, it's not that bad actually. But, you know, Valentine's Day, it's all calorie free, right?
Right.
So, all right. This is available, of course. You can go to mapetiteshoe.com.
.com, yes. And we ship all over the world our chocolate, especially during the cooler months. Sometimes in the heat of the summer, it poses some difficulties, but right now, yeah, we ship anywhere you need our chocolate.
Great. All right. So our first pairing, the saffron and chili with the Bolla rosé sparkling wine. Insert whatever lovely rosé sparkling wine you have, but make sure it has really good fruit, maybe a little bit of sweetness, and or try a still rosé with some sweetness. And then one other thing I meant to say when we were talking about Hampden, so many people have seen the movie Hairspray. And of course, you know, that's some of how they envision Baltimore, at least back in the day. But you have this festival in Hampden called Hunfest. And if people really want to come experience Hampden, tell me when and how they can experience, because in Baltimore, it's a big thing to call people Hun. So give us a little taste of that.
So there's a contest, you know, for Baltimore's Best Hun, and it's every age group. It's a whole entire weekend of Hun fun, and it's usually Father's Day weekend.
Okay.
So the second weekend in June, and it takes over the entire neighborhood. And we have another festival called Hampden Fest that happens in September, and that's a little bit more on the indie side of things, with indie music and a lot of DIY craftspeople set up for that. Nice. So we have these two major festivals that bookend the year, and both are fun, June and September. And of course, hunfest.com, hamdenfest.com.
Great.
But it's a lot of fun, and you can go in and out of the shops, and a lot of the restaurants will have booths outside so you can sample food, and we have wine gardens and beer gardens. And
oh, I love it. All right. Well, okay, on to our next chocolate. This chocolate is so interesting. I've never tasted anything like it. And I mean interesting in a good way. So tell me a little bit more about this.
So this is a Swiss chocolate, and it has pine tree oil in it. So it is just kind of bizarre, you know? I mean,
in a good way.
What are we talking about? But it's delightful. And that's one of the things that I think if you are able to, you know, get a recommendation, a personal recommendation from someone in a small shop who really has met the chocolatier and can, you know, sometimes even give you a little sample if you're here in the shop. And we do chocolate happy hour the first Friday of every month. So we just had one for February, and we really try to give people, you know, samples of things that they've never tasted before. So this is a 60% cacao. And again, the chocolatiers are very, very careful about their percentage. I talked to one last year, and I think he came up with, like 62% was his, and he said, I tried every percentage along the spectrum, and for his particular inclusion was herbes de Provence and salt.
Ooh.
And he said, I don't want to make, why don't you make it darker? Why don't you make it, and he said, I tried every percentage and this one balanced the best. So they're very careful about their percentage. And sometimes you just have to trust them in that they've really calculated. They're not going to go darker, because then you won't be able to have the same experience of whatever their inclusion is. So this one is a 60%, and I recommend it even if you're a dark chocolate snob and you only do dark chocolate, just because you really want the flavor to shine through it. So I'm very curious to see what your palate experience is.
Would you say it's a lot like wine blending? Because I see this chocolate, when you're blending a wine, they're trying this percentage of Cab and this percentage of Merlot with a little bit of, Malbec, like if we're in Bordeaux, for instance, Cabernet Franc. And then they just keep mixing it up until they find the right sweet spot. So is that the same?
Very much the same thing. You want the different areas of your tongue and your palate to be excited. You want whatever the flavor is to also come through and not be overshadowed by the cacao being too dark, I think, in many instances. And I've tasted a lot of chocolate in my day, and sometimes people, it can be hit or miss. The good ones really do their research and really develop the chocolate to, they're not just throwing things together for the sheer shock factor.
Right.
There have been big fads of like bacon and chocolate. And then of course there was, which of course we do sell. But I think then that went into like beef jerky and chocolate. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it can go to extremes, but the ones that hang on are really the ones that really just are exceptional and pop. We have actually a firecracker bar, it's called, that has pop rocks in it.
Ooh.
And a really nice dark chocolate. So if you don't have the quality chocolate, you're just going to have a novelty experience, and people aren't going to come back for the bar. But this one by Chihuahua is really quite good because the chocolate is good to begin with. So, and that one's spicy and it has the pop rocks.
Interesting. Okay, I really, even though this is such a different chocolate with this pine flavor, it's something I've never tasted before, but I really enjoy it. To me, it almost feels very herb infused. I mean, I know it's pine, but I almost think of things like rosemary. I don't know why, when I'm mixing it with the chocolate. But my idea for the pairing, and I think I did okay. I can think of a couple other things I might try now that I've tried this once. But my first idea was, Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot to a lesser extent sometimes has this sort of mint eucalyptus quality to it. And so I thought it might be a bridge flavor. And I knew of this Cabernet, and it was very good fruit to it. And some chocolate undertones, which I thought would be another bridge to the chocolate. And so this is called Z Alexander Brown. It's just under $20. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's from California, from the North Coast. And Z Brown is Zach Brown from the Zach Brown Band, if you know anything about country music. So he is doing this as a joint venture with John Killebrew, the winemaker. It's Uncaged, which is the name of one of his albums, and it has a big owl on the front. Very outdoorsy, kind of like our Swiss fine chocolate. So that was my inspiration. And what was interesting about it is with the Cabernet, when I go back, it actually lifts the pine flavor even more after the sip of the wine. and you go back. So it kind of even elevates that flavor in the chocolate. I think if you wanted to maybe contrast it a little bit more, you could even go bigger fruit like Zinfandel, like a red Zinfandel, and that could be really fun too. But I really enjoyed it. I like that herbal pine, flavor in there. And I loved, after I had the sip and I went back and it was like, ooh, I'm getting even more of it. It's coming out. So
chose that bar because I thought that would be a very intriguing bar to pair with.
absolutely.
I'm glad you had fun with it, and wear a little lumberjack, shirt.
I love it. I love it.
Back for wine and pine oil chocolate.
Wine and pine. You're starting something here. So we had our Rosé sparkling from Bolla. We had our Z Alexander Brown Cabernet Sauvignon. I think that was really fun. I wanted to definitely get a dry wine in there because so many people, there are so many great sweet wines that I think are perfect with chocolate, but so many people want to have their chocolate with their dry red wines, for instance. So I thought it'd be fun to incorporate that, even though my third choice is a full-on dessert style wine, because to me, many times that is the best pairing for chocolate. But we'll have to see. I'll send you a bottle of the Z Brown and we'll see if you agree.
I love that idea.
Awesome.
So we're going to do the dark cherries first, or
yes,
the tart one, the tart red raspberry?
Let's go with the tart. Why not?
Okay. So this is from De Brand, and I thought this was such an interesting bar because what they have developed is what they call, it's how they form the bar. And so it's a nibble, bite, and chunk bar. And you can actually, it's somewhat molded.
See that?
So that you can do just a nibble, just a bite, or a big chunk of chocolate. So I thought that's really fun if you have a wine tasting and you want to be able to have multiple people sharing a bar. It's quite indulgent. It's full of these tart red raspberries, quite full of fruit. They're just, throughout. And
here's the bar, if you can see it. It's already kind of measured out, which is lovely, with the big piece in the middle for whoever's hosting the tasting.
That's right.
So it's almost like a crunch bar in a way.
Right, with all the raspberry in there. The raspberry seeds, yeah. And I was curious whether you were going to go fruity or more contrast. So
yeah. So where I went with this, and I'm very curious to try this also with the dark cherry, but I think you know this wine because it's one of my all-time favorite chocolate pairings, and it's called Brachetto d'Acqui. It comes from Piedmont, Italy, up in the northwest part of Italy. Brachetto is the grape, and Acqui is this area within the Piedmont that's known for its dessert wines. And I don't know if you can see, but it is sparkling, or what they call frizzante in Italy, which means semi-sparkling. It's got flavors of raspberry and rose and perfume, very perfumed. And it's said that Caesar and Cleopatra toasted with this wine during their legendary love affair. So I thought for Valentine's it was so appropriate. And I always tell people, when I'm describing this wine, it's like raspberry champagne, if you could imagine that. And so with the raspberries, I just thought that's a no-brainer. I just can't. I can't not pick it.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Very nice. Here you go. But again, I love that effervescence, clearing the palate. The raspberry, you really almost get, just a confirmation of the raspberry because it's here and it's in the bar. The bar is lovely just all on its own. It really is. It's got texture and flavor. There's just so many things going on. I love that.
Yeah, they're a really fun company, and they did we have a cherry one, and we have a hazelnut sea salt crisp, and I think that they did, I think it was like a sweet potato bar that we sold out of right away. Ah, that's
Wow, this is, yeah, the Rosa Regale is the name of the Brachetto. It's
nice.
about $24 a bottle, depending on where you get it. And it's big enough for two people to share. Or maybe four, who knows, But great. So now, so for instance, we love this tart red raspberry. Do you have several different things from this company typically, or do you just try to have one from each brand?
Oh no, we usually do the full line. So
Okay.
when we go for when we go for a brand and support it, we usually, have in stock whatever they're really doing that year. There are some very esoteric companies that only produce, and you'll relate to this from the wine world. They'll only produce a certain chocolate bar like once a year. So
Mm,
then you have to be on board and have to pre-order it, and then they move on to other flavors throughout the year. Patrick Chocolate works that way. So you can only, it's limited edition, and there are
right.
some bars that are even numbered with how many are in the limited edition. So it gets pretty crazy.
It does. So let me just orient people because I think it's so interesting. So this bar is $7.29 is what I have written on mine. $7.29. But what I love about this experience versus you go to the grocery store and you get your big box of chocolates or your bag of whatever chocolate, which maybe is the same price or less than this bar, is that I could have this one, just that one little square of this chocolate and really enjoy the flavors. It's really artisanal. And to me, that's enough. And then I'll have another little piece tomorrow and then the next day, rather than feeling full and gross and like, oh, why did I have that huge candy bar? And to me, this is just such a better way to enjoy chocolate. I don't know. How do you explain that to people that aren't used to investing in quality chocolate like this?
Right. I think that we've educated a lot of people in the Baltimore area, and I think the whole country has come on board with this idea of going more for quality than quantity,
Hmm.
because it's so much more satisfying just
Right.
to have a little morsel of quality chocolate. You really are like, hey, I'm good,
Yes.
like that does it. And I think the idea of putting honey or ginger or dried, freeze dried raspberry, or all of these other flavors in there, they can really reduce the actual sugar that's in the chocolate.
Mm,
That's the whole idea
interesting.
behind the darker chocolate. It's so much less sugar content. So you're really getting this, this chocolate experience, that quote unquote isn't as bad for you, and everything in
Everything in moderation.
food in moderation, said Oscar Wilde.
Right. But I'm with you. To me, it's a similar for wine because I'd rather have one glass of a wine that I love than a bottle of something that I just am not enjoying, and so I think chocolate's the same way. I mean, it's all about the experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and people are on board with it. I think we've had the shop for 13 years, and in the beginning, some of the French companies in the European countries were crazy. They said we were crazy. Actually, they said we won't send it to America. We would order certain things and we'd ask about certain dark chocolates, and they said, oh, the Americans, they won't buy it.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's been quite a journey in that regard, but I think that there's been a lot of media around dark chocolate, and a lot of stories about the healthy antioxidants and the flavonoids and all this
Hmm.
great stuff that chocolate brings to the table. So there's been a lot more awareness, and now we have our wonderful chocolate scouts that come where they bring us chocolate.
Wow.
And we've developed some real friendships in the store because people have brought wonderful chocolate that it's not available yet in Baltimore, and they've found it maybe in their travels.
Wow.
And sometimes there's an actual bar in there, and sometimes it's just the package. Didn't save us chocolate to taste, but they did save us the package, and they tell us it's wonderful.
And I know you go on scouting trips as well, because last time we were together, you had just been to Brooklyn, which I don't think of as the chocolate capital of the world, but
it has become,
yeah, you showed me so many great small chocolatier chocolates from Brooklyn.
We've been to Brooklyn, we've been to Barcelona, Spain. We go to Paris as often as we're able to. I'd love to go to Bruges, Belgium. Ooh. That's on the bucket list, but I haven't been there yet. They have. But, you know, it's interesting because there are some cities and it's just pretty much traditional chocolate, classic chocolate flavors. There maybe isn't as much experimentation going on, but places like Brooklyn, it's nothing but.
Right.
So that's kind of, you know, what if you go to, you know, California, there's some strange stuff going on out there, and they're pushing they're pushing the limits there in everything culinary. So we try to get out to San Francisco, and there are, I think in Northern, but also in Southern California, there are a lot of young chocolatiers that are doing some experimentation. And what you find on the West Coast, which is so interesting, is more influence, like Asian influences. So we carry a company called the Tea Room, and it's all lapsang souchong, and it's chai chocolate, and there's teas, rooibos in chocolate. So it's a whole line of chocolate that is tea infused.
Ooh, lovely. How many chocolates do you have in the shop?
At any given time, probably 50 to 70 different brands or different types of chocolate, and we're always rotating. We try to keep people's favorites in, but it's hard because there's always new chocolate, and we're very small. And it's very well vetted in here. But this year I had to bring in, we have these little chocolate bottles similar to the liqueurs, but they have Belgian beer in them, lambic and other Belgian beers inside of these little chocolate bottles. So we have these little miniature beer cases, and so sometimes I just can't resist. You know, the thing is, we have to find a way to fit it in here. We have black vinegar, rice vinegar, actually truffles that we're selling this Valentine's. Yeah, we try to really like raise the bar every season.
Well, speaking of raising the bar, I am holding Nirvana. Right? Chocolate Nirvana. So tell me about this.
So this is a Belgian company, and they're pretty phenomenal. They also do just the most exquisite marzipan that's like done by these amazing artists. But this is a dark chocolate with cherries bar, and it is fair trade certified, 72% cacao. With dried cherries in it, and they're quite large. The cherry chunks in this one is
I don't know if you can see that, but the cherry right there. Love it. And little gnomes on the front too.
Adorable gnomes, yes, and cherry blossoms.
So if you open a bar like this, how long is it okay to eat?
Oh, you mean once it's open, the shelf life? The darker the chocolate, the longer the shelf life. So just keep it in a cool, dry place. If you do refrigerate your chocolate, expect to get a bloom on it, which is the separation of the cocoa butter solids from the rest of the chocolate. So it doesn't hurt the chocolate. It doesn't affect the taste, but it is visually unappealing when you see bloom on it.
That's like the white, a white covering.
A little white almost looks like powdery on the top. So a lot of people do put their chocolate in the refrigerator, but you really don't need to unless it has fresh ingredients like truffles. So truffles, if they have fresh milk in them and a center that has a fresh cherry in it or something like that, you can refrigerate it. But really, really chocolate. We have dark chocolate bars, and you could have it in your cupboard for 2 years or a year. I don't think any of these bars would last that long,
Right.
in terms of eating them.
Well, now I know this may sound totally crazy. People laugh when I say this, but if I find one like this, by the way, Nirvana is delicious. It is, I love it. And it's really fun, almost more fun with that Brachetto in some ways. I love that little cherry being in there. It's just a little surprise. And I might keep that in my nightstand next to my bed, because sometimes I'm watching TV and I want to just have a little square of chocolate. That's my dessert while I'm just relaxing. Is that weird? And is it okay just in the nightstand like that?
Totally fine. Yeah. I mean, you just don't want to have it in the sun. It will melt in the sun. I have some friends and quite a number of people who they have like their stash. Their stash has maybe like 30 bars in it, and they just go to it and take a little nibble of this one or that one. So it's like their little treasure box, and they just they keep it in the cupboard, and it's just kind of their go-to little fun thing.
And in the old days, my daughter only liked milk chocolate. Now she's 12, and she did get to have a little taste of the tart red raspberry, and she loved it. So now I really have to hide the chocolate.
Oh, right.
This would just be mommy's chocolate. But now she's getting
a surprise how many kids have advanced palates and are eating dark chocolate now, which I think is wonderful. And I think the parents are, really support that too.
Right.
It's just less sugar all around in their diets. But yeah, I think it's great to kind of, encourage that. And they're more experimental in terms of, what they want to try. I love the little kids that come in here and are just little smarty pants about the chocolate,
right?
And the cacao level, and what they like and don't like, what their favorite flavors are. I think that's really fun. Yeah,
that's great. So okay, we had a sparkling rosé with the saffron. I think that sparkling rosé would be really fun with the raspberry too. We had the Z. Alexander Brown Cabernet with the Swiss pine from Milk Boy. And then the Brachetto from Rosa Regale was great with the DeBrand raspberry, and the Nirvana dark cherry. And tell me, of course, if you need a Valentine's gift, you can go to the website, mapetiteshoe.com. You can come into the shop in Hampden and pick out your gifts. But what are you doing at the creperie to celebrate Valentine's or any time?
The whole Valentine's weekend, we have a special menu. We've just been developing it over the past weeks. And we have this tuna pomodoro. We have just these really amazing crepes that are sweet crepes, but we sell just all these wonderful savory crepes as well. And we even did a year of the monkey crepe. So that has cashew butter, 5-spice, spicy honey, melted into a crepe. So it's kind of like a fun Asian Nutella, if you want to think of it that way. So we have a lot of fun with the menu at the crepe shop, and we do incorporate the chocolate in a lot of our baked goods, and also in our crepes. We have a crepe called the Persian truffle, so that has Belgian truffles, actual truffles melted into the hot crepe, and then a rose sauce and candied fennel, the little samph candy that's at the end of an Indian meal. There's little multicolored. So the candied fennel gets sprinkled inside the crepe too, and so it's kind of crunchy, and you have the aroma of the rose sauce and the lovely melted chocolate truffle in the crepe. Are you salivating yet?
What? I need one!
So that's happening. We open at 9 a.m. at the Creperie, and we're 7 days a week at the Shoes and Chocolate Shop at Ma Petite Shoe Shop. And Sunday morning, I'll be on TV talking about all these wonderful new exotic flavors and how to navigate your way through the chocolate world. But everyone that works here really will give you just the best tour of the entire shop whenever you come. And if you want to come, usually we're open later till 9 p.m. on these first Friday nights. So that's the first Friday of every month, and that's really fun because then the samples are all over the store. And
great.
We'll have to do something with you because
I know
have a little something to imbibe with it. Sometimes we get really corny and do crazy cocktails, but it would be fun to do
absolutely
tasting too.
And if you come to get chocolates, right around the corner you have the wine source, so you can always stock up on both, which is great too. So if you want to try these pairings, you can achieve that very easily for Valentine's weekend. Susannah Siger from Ma Petite Shoe, as well as the Creperie, thank you so much for being on the Sipping Point. This was all so delicious. I hope I gave you some ideas for some pairings.
You did.
And you always have me on the cutting edge of chocolate, and I love that. So thank you so much. Check her out at mapetiteshoe.com.